want to thank you so much, all of you, for taking the time to come on a little warm September day. But we got the fans blowing, and nothing wrong with, we'll wish we had this kind of heat in a few months. Because I know the weather here isn't that much better than Chicago, so when it comes to the winter. I want to begin by thanking Curtis for the wonderful introduction. Curtis Dean, thank you so much. I want to thank a couple other people that acknowledge some very important people who are in the room. First, now I haven't seen all of these people, so I hope they're actually here. First of all, I want to say congratulations to somebody who's had an outstanding career on behalf of the people of Iowa. Jack Kennedy, State Senator. You here? Well, he's supposed to be here. But give a round of applause anyway. And I also know, I think that Marcy Ferber is also supposed to be here. Is Marcy here? State Representative. Your County Attorney, Michael Hutchins, is Michael here. Give a round of applause anyway. Your County Supervisor, Sylvia Shore. Where's Sylvia? There she is, 19 years County Supervisor. We've got Steve Bongar, Spencer City Council. Your County Supervisor, Sylvia Shore. Where's Sylvia? There she is, 19 years County Supervisor. We've got Steve Bongar, Spencer City Council. Steve, it sounds like you got some folks in there. What, are these all your family members? We've got Bob Wittenberg, Clay County Chair. Where's Bob? And finally, some of you know that I now live in Chicago, but I'm not originally from Chicago. I moved here, I moved to Chicago because I became a community organizer, working with church groups, trying to set up job training programs for the unemployed. And after a few months of working as a community organizer, I came to realize that community organizers are underpaid and they're underappreciated. And now that I'm running for president, I've hired a bunch of young people as organizers. And they're underpaid, and they're underappreciated. So I'm not going to give her more pay, but I want to appreciate the Clay County organizer who works on my behalf. She's a wonderful young lady. I hope you get a chance to know her. Best Evans, where's Best Evans? There's Jim. She's not that tall. She's not that tall, but she's got that megawatt smile, and she's just got a wonderful personality. And if after the end of this event, some of you decide that you don't want to support Barack Obama's campaign, nothing would make Bess happier than for you to fill out one of these supporter cards before you leave, so she can stay in contact with you leading up to the caucus. All right, we'll be passing these out. Everybody can fill one out. We'd love to have you. Love to have you involved. All right, did I do my job best? All right, thumbs up. So let me tell you, Spencer, I've been running for president now for a little over 6 months. And everywhere we go, we've seen these enormous crowds. We had 10,000 people in Iowa City. And we had 20,000 people in Austin, Texas. And we had 20,000 people in Atlanta, Georgia. And what's so inspiring is not just the size of the crowds, but it's the fact that they're a cross-section of the country. We've got young people and old people. We've got blacks, whites, Hispanic, Asians, Native Americans, we've got Democrats and independents and even some Republicans sneak in. You know, they don't tell their friends, but here's one of them right there, see? We've got people who are coming out in the first political event of their lives. And, you know, the conventional thinking in Washington tells us that we're divided into red states and we're divided into blue states. That we're doomed to fight the same tired partisan battles over and over and over again. You know, they tell us that we can't get together to solve big problems like energy or healthcare or education. But these crowds tell me something else. They tell me that the problems that we face are not with the American people. The American people aren't the problem. The American people are the answer. The American people understand that we need a fundamental change in this country. They want something true. They are willing to turn the page. Now, in the face of a politics that has shut us out and told us to settle, that's divided us for too long, I think most of you here believe that we can come together as one people, that we can reach for what's possible and build that more perfect union. And I think many people feel that change begins by bringing an end to the policies of the Bush-Cheney administration. In the last 6 years, we've seen an administration that treats the Constitution as a nuisance to be avoided, as opposed to the foundation of our democracy. We've seen policies that have widened the divide between Wall Street and Main Street so that ordinary workers are trying to figure out how to fill up the gas tank to save for their child's college education, save for retirement. Meanwhile, you've got CEOs who are making more in 10 minutes than ordinary workers are making in an entire year. We've seen fellow citizens abandoned on rooftops after a storm. And we've seen a disastrous war in Iraq that should have never been authorized and should have never been waged. A war that the people of Iowa have determined needs to come to an end. That's part of the reason you're here, because you're frustrated about the lack of progress coming out of the Bush administration. But I have to say this, it's going to take more than a change of parties in the White House to bring about the changes that are needed. George Bush and Cheney may have turned divisive, special interest-driven politics into an art form, but they didn't invent it. It was there before they got to Washington, and if we don't stand up and insist that something has to change, it'll be there after they're gone. So we face a choice in this election. Do we continue the cynical math that says that it's a winning strategy to divide the country in half? Or do we decide that we've got a stake in each other as Americans and unite this country as a common purpose? Do we continue the conventional Washington foreign policy that led us into this misguided war? Or do we engage with friends and foes in a way that restores America's moral leadership and security? Do we allow lobbyists to veto our country's progress? Or do we put our national interests ahead of the special interests and address the concerns that people have over jobs and health care and their children's futures? That's the reason I'm running for president. Because I think that to meet these challenges, changing parties is not enough. We're going to need something entirely different. Now, there are those who are touting their experience working the system in Washington. But the problem is the system in Washington hasn't been working for us, and it hasn't been working for us for a very, very long time. Think about it. We've been talking about the healthcare crisis in this country and Republican administrations. We failed to act, and you know why? Because the drug companies, the insurance companies, over the last decade alone have spent $1 billion in trying to prevent healthcare reform from happening. Same thing on energy. We've been talking about our energy crisis for decades. And yet we keep on seeing no progress on improving fuel efficiency standards on cars, or really seriously dealing with our dependency on foreign oil, because we once with the environmental groups, we met once with the renewable energy groups, and we met 40 times with the oil and gas industry. Obviously, we're not going to get a real energy policy that way. The problem is that too many people in Washington see politics as a game. And that's why I believe this election can't be about who can play this game better. It has to be about who can put an end to the game plan. The times are too serious. The stakes are too high. And the change that's required, this spirit of responsibility and honesty, of sacrifice, and seriousness, starts with all of you who came here today. It starts with millions of people around the country coming together and demanding that we can do better than we're doing right now. I've never seen politics as a game. From the day I became that community organizer on the south side of Chicago over 2 decades ago, I've always seen politics as a mission, as a way for us to close the gap between the reality of our lives and our ideas. Now, if you don't spend your whole life in Washington, it becomes easier to remember what this means. You know, the other day I got a chance to head out to California because the Service Employees International Union, SEIU, had organized what they called Walk a Day in Our Member Shoes. And so I woke up at 5 a.m. in the morning, and I met up with a 61-year-old woman named Pauline Beck, who was a home care worker. And every day of her life, she wakes up and she takes care of 2 foster children in her house who don't have a family of their own. And then she goes to the house of an 87-year-old amputee, and she works there taking care of him. And so I went with her to work, and we scrubbed floors, and we did laundry, and we cleaned rooms, all of which my wife was very surprised about when she found out. But I tell you what, it was one of the best days that I've had on the campaign so far, because it reminded me of what we're doing here. You know, listening to this humble woman talk about the hardships of her life without a trace of self-pity, glad she could be of service to somebody, just wanting a little bit more pay to take care of the kids, or a little more security in their retirement, or maybe a day off once in a while to rest their tired back. I was reminded that for all the noise and all the pettiness that we hear coming out of Washington, what holds this country together is this fundamental belief that we all have a stake in each other, that I am my brother's keeper, that I am my sister's keeper, and that expression, that generosity of spirit, has to express itself not just in our churches, not just in our families, it's got to express itself in our government. Because when it doesn't, we get what happened in New Orleans 2 years ago. We see our fellow citizens stranded without help. When folks in Washington hear me speak like this, a lot of them roll their eyes and say, oh, he's talking about hope again. He's so naive. He's a hope peddler. He's a hope monger. Well, let me tell you, I stand guilty as charged. I am hopeful about America. Apparently, the pundits consider this a symptom of a lack of experience. And we've been hearing that argument a lot lately. And I used to wonder when it first surfaced what they meant exactly, this experience argument, because I've been in public service for over 2 decades now. As a community organizer, as a civil rights lawyer, as a constitutional law professor, as a state legislator, as a United States senator. But then somebody explained to me that what they really mean is that only the years in Washington count as real experience. And I don't know about you, but I think they're wrong about that. Now, there were these 2 guys I don't know if you heard of them, but there were a couple guys named Cheney and Rumsfeld who had spent a lot of time in Washington, had all kinds of experience on their resumes. And they led us into the worst foreign policy disaster of a generation. So time served doesn't translate automatically into good judgment. The length of your resume doesn't say anything about your character. So, let me tell you about a different kind of experience. I'm happy to match my opponents on the kind of experience they're talking about, but let me talk to you about a different kind of experience. The experience I bring to this race. My experience tells me that real change and progress comes not by dividing people, but by bringing people together to get things done. Like when I work with police officers and civil rights advocates to fix the death penalty system in Illinois that had put 13 innocent people on death row. Or when I work with Republicans and Democrats to provide 150,000 Illinoisans with health insurance that didn't have it. Or to give tax breaks, $100 million worth of tax breaks to working families that really needed it instead of giving tax breaks to folks who didn't need it and weren't even asking for it. That's what my experience has taught me, how to bring people together. My experience tells me that real reform and real change comes when you're willing to put the people's interests ahead of the special interests and the partisan interests. That's what I did in Illinois when I took on money in politics and passed the first ethics reform legislation in 25 years. And that's what I did in Washington, where I just last year helped move a law together, passed a law that earned me the cold shoulder of both parties. For the first time in history, Washington lobbyists will have to disclose who they're raising money from and who they're funneling to. Because I think that when we apply some sunshine to what's going on in Washington, that makes our democracy work better. The American people have a right to know. I believe that. So let me be clear. There are a lot of people in Washington who've been in Washington a lot longer than I have. Who have more lobbyist pals. They go to the right dinner parties and they know how to talk the Washington talk. And I guess I don't have the experience that they like, but I do have the experience I believe that America needs here and now to move the country forward. Hope and change are not just that in the richest nation on earth, we can have 47 million people without health insurance. We can stand by while millions more are on the verge of bankruptcy because somebody in their family gets sick. My mother died of ovarian cancer when she was 53 years old. And, you know, in the last months of her life, she wasn't thinking about getting well. She wasn't thinking about coming to terms with her life. She was thinking about whether or not the insurance was going to cover her illness because she was in between jobs when she first started feeling symptoms. And she was worried that she wasn't going to get covered because of a pre-existing condition. So I know what it's like to watch a family member or somebody you love suffer because of a broken healthcare system. And that is wrong. That's not who we are. And that's the reason why, when I am President of the United States of America, we are going to pass a bill that provides health insurance to every single American by the end of my first term in office. We are going to make that happen. For people who don't have it, and for those who do, we're going to pass legislation to make sure that we save you $2,500 a month on your premiums every year. And we are not going to let the drug companies, the insurance companies block it this time. It is too important. It is time to get it done right here and right now. I do not accept that we have to keep on sending $800 million a day to hostile nations because of our addiction to foreign oil, a dependency that fuels both sides of the war on terrorism and is melting the polar ice caps in the planet. I think we can meet our moral obligations to the future and bring an end to the march of global warming. I have a plan to raise fuel efficiency standards on cars. And I want to point out, I didn't just give this speech about this plan in front of a bunch of environmental groups in California. I gave the speech in Detroit in front of automakers. And I have to say, when I gave the speech, it was kind of quiet in the room. But I did it because I think that we're going to get anywhere just by telling people what they want to hear. We've got to tell people what they need to hear. We need to tell the American people the truth. That's the least you can expect I'm the President of the United States of America.